All right, Rachel Nichols, Fox Sports 1, All the Smoke, Monumental Sports Network, right here on the Open Floor podcast every week. I have to start the show by defending my people.
Indignant Chris. I like when we get indignant Chris.
I'm
go.
defending
go.
my people.
Just go. The floor is yours.
I'm here to defend ball boys of America. As a former ball boy with the Boston Celtics from 1995 to 2003, great year, almost 10 years, fun run. Paul Pierce, Antoine Walker, shout out to those teams. As a former ball boy, I was offended by what I saw from NBA referee Mark Davis over the weekend in the Utah Jazz Chicago Bulls game. If you haven't seen it, I want our producer to play the tape over this YouTube clip. There was a dead ball situation where a Bulls player was knocked to the ground. I forgot which Bulls player it was, but he's knocked to the ground. In that situation, you saw the Utah ball boys reacting the way ball boys should from both directions. One came from one end of the floor, one came from the other, all converging on the same spot to clean up the wet spot, to protect players.
With brooms.
With brooms from condensation.
Yep.
They got there. What did Mark Davis do? Mark Davis whistled the Jazz for a delay of game penalty, which was the second delay of game penalty, which led to a free throw by Chicago, which may have cost the Jazz that game. That was a double overtime game. This happened in regulation. Gave them a point, cost them a game, because Mark Davis believed these ball boys to be in on some kind of conspiracy to delay the game so that the Jazz could have an extra few seconds to review and potentially challenge the foul call on that play. I was deeply offended. I was perturbed by this decision by Mark Davis. How about you?
Look, we've had technicals given out for smiling, right? We've had technicals given out for you looked at me the wrong way. This will join the annals of that one. And I think, look, I'm sure that Mark who is a good referee, got a talking to after that game.
But that's the thing.
That was
Hold on.
not appropriate.
I don't think he did. Because
Come on.
I'm on a couple of text threads with NBA league office officials. And when I made this particular case on one thread,
yes,
I was getting so much pushback.
Well,
in
what way?
Because
what were they saying?
League officials say that these kind of delay tactics are commonplace in the NBA. I even had a couple of people saying to me that in some situations, there can be coordinated efforts between a coaching staff and the ball boys to delay a game in that situation by running on the floor. Now, Mark Davis's explanation, he did this, I don't know who the pool reporter was, but good on you for going in there.
There was a pool report, yes.
He goes, Mark Davis's explanation.
CSI, ball boy.
Was that the ball persons, obviously there's some women involved there. They need to be, his word, beckoned onto the court. You don't need to be beckoned onto the court. In fact, if the only time a ball person, is allowed onto the floor is if the referee beckons them, then every single NBA court is going to be a swampy mess because there are guys falling all over the time. Ball boys are running out there in mops. I also want to say, as a former ball boy, that this idea that there is some kind of conspiracy between some teenage pimply-faced ball boy, which I was back in the days, and the coaching staff to, in the moment, recognize that the team needs a few extra seconds to decide if they're going to challenge. You know what I was thinking about all those 8 years when I was working? I was thinking about how much money can I make tonight?
Girls.
Where can I spend it? Mostly on women. And is there any pizza left in the bag? Those were the three thoughts that I generally crossed my mind in the 5 hours I was at TD Garden during the 90s.
Well, look, I'm a Dodgers fan. So if banging on a trash can is a thing, I'm not going to cut out anything as a possibility. However, even if you could convince me that there is a rampant problem with ball boy conspiracists and their coordination with the benches, it doesn't supersede safety. And we've had guys slip on sweat and have major injuries occur, knees twisted, things like that. And if it's a question of, hey, this might have been crossing the line, this might not have been crossing the line, there was sweat on the court, two NBA bodies, I believe, crashed down on that court, you just got to go with safety, period. And if it was a coordinated effort between the pimply-faced ball people.
It was not.
and the bench.
It was not.
For a couple extra seconds. Doesn't matter. Here's my question to you. Were the Utah Jazz happy that game was snatched away from them, or unhappy?
This is kind of what came back to me, too, from some league people. Like, the Jazz really wanted to win. I think the front office will take the loss. I think Will Hardy and his team, Lowry Markkinen, some of the guys there that won him in, they wanted that. And, like, I loved Will Hardy's response, just screaming at Mark Davis.
I thought he was going to get thrown out.
Bro. Nobody's trying to challenge that. Love that.
I thought he was going to get kicked out of the game.
I'm with you, ball boys. I am with you. I am your representative in the media. I am your voice.
I think that there are 100 ways people listening thought this podcast might start, and none of them were this one, but continue.
Defend the ball boys. All right, let's get into it here. To more meaningful topics. We haven't talked about the Toronto Raptors on this show.
Correct.
In the first month or so of the season. We got to start talking about them now.
Sure.
The Toronto Raptors have won 8 of their last 9 games after, Monday's win against Charlotte. They are sitting now tied for 3rd place in the Eastern Conference. An offense that couldn't buy a bucket last year is now sitting in the top 10. They are above 500. I read this today for the first time since 2022. So something's cooking up there in the North. What's your take on this Raptors surge over the last couple of weeks?
Well, first of all, they have a really easy schedule patch coming up. So if they're tied for 3rd now, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up a little higher by the time people are listening to this and for the next week or so. Look, the style of offense they're running now is completely working for this group of personnel. And there were questions about this group of personnel coming in, but they are running that motion cutting Golden State Warriors style offense, minus a Steph Curry. And it's working for them. Their transition numbers are fantastic. They're a top 5, top 6 transition offense. There's just a bunch of other stats with them that are showing that the offensive side is working. And then defensively, in particular, Scotty Barnes has led the charge for them. And look, you and I know defense is half skill and half effort. The effort part has been there over and over and over again. And Scotty, while his offensive numbers haven't been quite what maybe he would most want, I think the little things he's doing on the court, both offensively and defensively, and the way he is defending his ass off on one-on-one matchups has been a huge part of this as well. I've been very impressed all the way around from the coaching staff on down. I don't know if they are communicating with ball boys, but they're doing a good job.
Let's start with Scotty Barnes. I think he's been great. 2-way player, looking like the star we thought he was going to develop into a couple of years ago. Last year was kind of a rough one for Scotty. The offensive output was there, but the efficiency numbers just cratered. It made you wonder, like, was he really on this Scottie Pippen type trajectory that people thought he was on? This year, it looks like he's right back on that track, right there once again in the All-Star mix. Brandon Ingram, not outstanding numbers overall, including the efficiency numbers, but this team really needed a guy that could get them a bucket in the half court. And Brandon Ingram's been that guy. Like, he still has his flaws. He can be a bit of a black hole sometimes, though I saw in that Charlotte game. He made a great pass at the end of that game to set up the winning shot. His ability to be a bucket getter in the half court is something they didn't have last year. Obviously didn't play for them after the trade last season. That's been a huge addition to them. Their bench has been
great.
Really good for them. I'm not going to butcher his last name, even though I'm going to try it. Sandro Mamukelashvili. I'm going to call him Mamu for the rest of this, because that's what everybody calls him up there in the North. He's been phenomenal for this team. Every team needs a player like Mamu who kind of comes out of nowhere. I know he was pretty good for San Antonio last year, but I don't think anybody saw this type of rise from Mamu. He's like an AJ Mitchell in Oklahoma City. He's a Ryan Rollins in Milwaukee. He's just been such a difference maker for them. Like, his shooting numbers are off the charts right now. So with Mamu kind of leading that bench unit, they've got great depth. They've got an efficient offense. If I'm concerned about them long-term, it is the defense. I look at that starting lineup. How many plus defenders are really there? Like, Scotty Barnes is a plus defender. I don't think Ingram is a plus defender. Quickly's not a plus defender. Barrett's not a plus defender. Jakob Poeltl's fine in the middle. I wonder when they get to the postseason, does that lack of plus defenders hurt them against a team that's full of great wings? Not many of the Eastern Conference, but does that hurt them? But for right now, They're getting it done with transition. They're getting it done with their depth. I think they're one of the best stories of the season.
Yeah. Number one in transition frequency, which is a small,
Playing.
micro stat, but it matters, right?
Yeah.
Look, you talk about the playoffs. I think that's, first of all, fun for Toronto fans just to hear you talk about
They've
that.
been so bad. Like, what, 2 playoff appearances in the last 6 years? Right. Like, I get what they did going all in for Kawhi. I'd do it again 6 days a week.
100%.
And twice on Sunday. But the rebuild has been long in
very
Toronto.
long. Very, very long. So I think that's just nice to have some excitement. We talked a lot about who's at the very top of the East and, will the Knicks finally have their turn in the finals now that Boston and the Pacers are hobbled by injuries. We haven't really talked about these teams in the middle, though, moving up to the top half, right? So the Raptors in a regular year in the East, where the Pacers are the defending Eastern Conference champions and were full strength with Tyrese, where the Celtics were the Celtics with Jason Tatum. Would the Raptors sort of finish out with a 3-4 in the conference record? Probably not, right? But some of the pressure being let out of the tire with the teams who typically are at the top, this allows more fan bases who aren't typically getting this experience of having a team that wins a lot and that, can talk about the playoffs. And that is a nice sort of a bad situation. This is a nice sort of fallout. It's also made people in Toronto get a little, racy, being like, should we make a trade at the trade deadline and go out and get someone? So I've heard that talk a little bit.
I feel like that was like more a Masai Ujiri thing. Like, I don't, like, Bobby Webster came up under Masai Ujiri, so there's not a ton of wiggle room between them. But like, Masai was always like, go big or go home, like go broke. I still think they're not like super young. Like, Quickly's been around for a while, Barnes has been around for a while, Inger's been around for a while. I mean, but they're still, I think, young enough to play this out and see what you need at the end of the season. Like, Ingram was I love that trade when it happened. They didn't have to give up a ton to get him.
Right.
And I don't believe Brandon Ingram is Jason Tatum, but I think he's kind of cutting that cloth. And that team, to go back to the half-court option, like, they didn't have one last year. Like, Scotty Barnes is not the guy you throw the ball to and expect him to go make a play in the half court. Brandon Ingram can be that guy. His mid-range, like, his three-point shooting stinks, but his overall field goal percentage is pretty good. It's like 48%. So I think having him makes them dangerous in close games. That's going to help them in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, he had this huge dunk the other night, and people were just so excited to see that. You talk about not having these winning seasons. There just hasn't been that juice, that energy in the building. He's a great dunker.
Great place to watch games.
Right?
You've been
Great
there.
place to
Awesome.
watch.
Awesome
Incredible.
place to watch games.
And great fan base. I love that fan base.
Yeah.
So I just think it's exciting for the fans, for the players. And by the way, the players are going to get playoff experience if things continue to go this way in a way they might not have in other years, which, again, more teams in the mix in the Eastern Conference. So, maybe getting that playoff experience at a higher level, that kind of thing. I think that can all be good. I don't think it's a Masai Ujiri big swing. Do they just try to go out and get a 3-and-D guy, someone who can, fill out on that three-point shooting and, most importantly, fill out defensively? I don't know. We'll have to see where they think they are. I'm very curious, teams in the East, how many sort of feel like, let's go for it now, even if it's not the title. Let's go for getting to the second round. Let's go for getting to the conference finals, because
there's no boogeyman. Like,
that's what I mean.
Cleveland, Detroit, New York, all flawed teams at the top of the conference. I'm with you. I wouldn't. I mean, I get, like, the Raptors. Do they have what's their ceiling with this group? But I don't know how much room there is can they get to a championship level with this group? I don't know. I don't know how aggressive I would be this year. I would see what this team can do. Ingram was their big offseason acquisition, even if he wasn't, and then kind of go from there. But it's a fun story up in Toronto. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
From one thriving franchise to a floundering one, we got to talk about what happened in New Orleans.
Yep.
The Pelicans made the unshocking decision to fire Willie Green. 2-10 to start the season. They were basically bottom 5 in every single category: offensive rating, defensive rating, net rating. Worse than that, like, when I talk to coaches that went up against the Pelicans, like, they would just it would just be kind of like an ick that I would hear from them. Like, like, they don't play. There's no discipline to them. There's no identity to them. And I bring that up because it struck me when Joe Dumars announced the firing and he talked to reporters. He was talking about, like, this team doesn't have an identity. And I think that's fair. I think that's true. Willie Green, I think he was in a contract year. He was kind of a dead man walking there in New Orleans, wasn't hired by the Pelicans staff. The Pelicans then responded by getting smoked in back-to-backs by Golden State and the Thunder, so nothing really changed. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess they're Golden State and the Thunder. I'm with you there. But, is it shuffling deck chairs around on the Titanic right now? Like, can James Borrego really make a big difference on a team where you can't count on Zion Williamson to be healthy every single night? Your take on kind of what's happening in New Orleans?
Well, I thought the timing of it was interesting. There was an outcry from some New Orleans fans of, you should have done this summer, that kind of thing. I'm not surprised they waited. This is sort of a crafty old-time GM move of, if I replace the coach over the summer and I don't think the team is good enough to really do much, then it's on me. This way, kind of the team doesn't do much. You replace Willie, you get to have Borrego for most of the season. Mm-hmm. You say, oh, he's interim for the rest of the season. You don't have to have that, commitment. You see how he does. And then in the summer, you can take a round and see if there's a better coach out there. I think Borrego's fine. He hasn't distinguished himself as the greatest NBA coach in the world when he's had chances. He hasn't gotten hired for other jobs recently, but, he's going to get a chance to show his stuff. Part of my question with all of this, though, is they don't have their pick because of the ridiculous, insane trades
part of the same thing.
that they made, right around the NBA Finals.
I have nothing to do with New Orleans, but that actually gives me heartburn.
No, it's
watching
awful.
The Pacers just melt the way they are.
Yep.
And watching the Pelicans stumble. If you're Atlanta, you're sitting out there going like, this is great. Mm-hmm. Like, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you wonder if this is a team where the roster just isn't great and the two bright spots are the rookies. Jeremiah Fears is fun to watch.
Fun to watch. Better than I thought he was going to be.
Yep.
He's only like 18, 19 years old.
Absolutely. So. And Derek Queen is in one of those unenviable positions of no matter how well he does, it's not going to be worth an unprotected first-round pick.
Unless he's Victor Wembanyama.
Right.
Like, it's tough.
We can still say it was one of the worst trades I've seen in a long time, not in Dallas Mavericks, Luka level, but, very bad.
It's on the next tier.
And still simultaneously, two things can be true, that Queen has been good for them. So if their new timeline is reasonably these younger players, does the front office say, okay, we made some bad decisions when we first got here. When was the last time Joe Dumars was a team executive? He's been in the league for a while.
I mean, Detroit, right? He was kind of in Sacramento. What was his deal in Sacramento? I forget if he was involved.
He was involved, but he wasn't like the decision maker.
But Detroit was the one he was running basketball
so was that
operations.
A decade?
Probably something like that.
Right?
It didn't go well at the end of Detroit.
No. And my point is just, look, I think Joe Dumars is, obviously a legendary player. I covered those Pistons teams, put together a little bit of magic, putting those guys together. But, the league moves on, and it's possible that not having flexed those muscles for a decade or so, in a lead capacity way, you end up making some bad initial decisions. That doesn't mean you need to keep making them. And you don't have your pick this year. Is there something you could do to get a pick in this transcendent draft we always talk about back? And is it time to trade Zion Williamson?
But what does Zion get you right now?
Well,
for the third time in 4 years, he is dealing with a major injury. I think recent years have been hamstring injuries, same type of injury. He has played 30 games or less in 2 of the last 3 years. I know there was a 70-game season mixed in there. So everybody's kind of looking at that and going like,
it can happen.
It can happen. We can get him. We can get him to a 70-game threshold. I just don't know what the value for Zion is right in this moment.
There's no rush to do it.
Would Utah give up their unprotected first-round pick in this year's draft to get Zion Williamson?
So I think, first of all, there's no reason to do it right now when he's not playing. I think you wait until he hopefully puts together a stretch of 20 games where he's played straight. They just need to get it before the deadline. I think if you can sell someone on giving you their first round pick in this draft, and it is, above 15.
Ooh, I don't know if I'd do that. I mean, I brought up Utah because that's a team that's going to have, no matter what, a top 5 pick in the draft. And if you're bullish on this draft, which they should have been last year. They should have been last month or 2 months ago.
One would have thought.
If you're bullish on it, then yeah. If Utah was willing to do it, maybe you think about it. But for a team that might have the 12th or 13th pick, I'm also really concerned with the idea of selling low on Zion because I do think eventually Zion's going to get it.
Yeah, maybe but that's okay.
But is it though?
Yes.
You have to watch 10 years of Zion Williamson.
It's not working for you. Here's the thing. It's, I compare sometimes with NBA teams trades with buying a house because I think there's a lot of similarities. You just need one buyer, that sort of thing.
Right.
You can have a house that's a great house. It just doesn't work for you or your family, right? Like, think about some of the awesome apartments you've had in New York, in Boston.
New York, not so much, but yeah.
I had this amazing apartment in the Village when I was in my 20s and 30s. It was fantastic.
I was in
Guess
a lower
what?
tax bracket back then, Rachel. I was at a very, I was like a fact checker.
Guess what? I have 2 kids now. That apartment would not have worked for me at all right now. There's no reason for me to live in that apartment. It would not feel like a fabulous apartment. I would feel like, man, this is totally the wrong place. Everything about this frustrates me. We can't do X. We can't do Y. There is a point where you have to evaluate, is Zion Williamson doing for you the things that he needs to do to have value to keep him? And we have a large sample size at this point. And the truth is, he has not been able to, in New Orleans, whether it is age, whether it is body type, whether it is eating habits in an eating city, whether it is the training staff in New Orleans, whether it is an owner that prioritizes football over basketball. It could be a whole bunch of combined reasons, but those are the conditions in New Orleans. And Zion Williamson, after a long trial period, it's not working. So even if he goes off and is a great apartment for someone else, the truth is, you know by now, it's not working for you. And I think there is a point where if he can get a little bit healthier this season, you have 2 rookies you think are good and can be the start of something. If you can get a relatively high draft pick, it doesn't have to be top 3, in this draft, which is supposed to be so good all the way through, and really put your energy into scouting the right guys, I think that is a direction of the franchise that at least fans can believe in and players can believe in. Because the other problem leading up to this firing was attendance at the last few games.
Dreadful.
And you're talking about a team where the bar is already very low for attendance. Awful. I mean, they were almost playing a private game at one point. And player body language was even worse.
Yeah.
So this isn't working. And at some point, you have to decide, are we going to still live in the wrong apartment, even if it's a great apartment for someone else? Or are we going to go get a house somewhere in the suburbs? I mean, it's just, you got to figure that out.
Yeah, I saw our friend Nick Friedel, now with The Athletic, tweet, he's covering the Warriors full time.
Mm-hmm.
And he tweeted out that usually before every game, the crowds are huge to watch Steph warm up. Huge. In New Orleans, nothing.
No.
Nobody was there. Now, Nick, of course, got the ire of the Pelicans fans. And there are Pelicans fans. Like, they're always passionate fans. There's just not enough of them. But it's getting bad down there.
Yeah.
It's getting really bad. And God, if for some reason, like the Pacers and Hawks wind up with like 1-2 in the draft with picks that could have belonged, or at least one of those picks that could have belonged to the New Orleans Pelicans, just move them. Just pick up and start somewhere else. That's just almost an unforgivable sin to be in a position where you could get franchise-changing talent at the top of this draft. I don't know. It's getting bad down in New Orleans, that's for sure.
Well, I will say about the fans, by the way, the ones who were there, those are the best fans in the world.
Yeah.
If you can be a fan of this team and pay money to show up and watch them right now, you are literally, you have one fandom.
Yeah.
You have done it. You are number one. You have figured it out because you are the most loyal fan on earth. If this team, you can still find a reason to come pay to watch them right now.
You know the most loyal fan on earth is that kid that was in the Jets jersey. You watched that video when he was going around and he's like, I hate this team. I hate everybody. I was born into this. Like that is my kind of fan. I love that kid. I've watched that clip a million times. Oh,
why did they do this to me? Why did my parents not love me?
Oh, I love it. All right, let's finish on Ja Morant. This situation in Memphis, which is bad and just not getting any better. The Grizzlies have lost 4 in a row as we tape this on Tuesday, 8 of the last 9. Ja now has a calf strain. Why does everybody have calf strains now? Calf strains are like, they're becoming a big problem in the NBA.
Well, it's because if you have a calf strain, everybody is so worried it's going to turn into an Achilles tear that what used to be like, it's fine, play on it, is no longer.
Yeah, after last postseason, when you had 3 stars go down with Achilles tears, they're being extra careful. I get that. This calf strain, though, for Ja, expect to keep him out at least a couple of weeks, maybe longer. The body language on him, speaking of that, is bad. It's bad. Like, the bounce he used to play with is gone. The aggressiveness that used to be a hallmark of his game, not there. His shooting percentages cratered completely, like gone. He is, I don't even know what the numbers are right now, but I think he's under 20% from 3 and under 40% from the floor. Numbers that are, he's never been a great shooter, but those are really bad numbers.
Not going to the basket anymore.
Not going. Yeah, it's not him.
Yeah.
It's not him out there. It brings you back to the whole joy conversation we had a couple of weeks ago. Where do you go if you're Memphis? Like, you, up until this point, you've stood by Tuomas Isalo as your head coach. I don't think a coaching change is going to help. I
don't think so either.
I think we're past the point of coaching changes with Ja Morant. He's been given chance after chance with, now 2 different coaches in the span of 8-9 months. 3 coaches, if you want to include Noah LaRoche, who was fired with Taylor Jenkins, and it hasn't worked. But the problem is, and I talk to league executives about this stuff all the time, like, I don't know what the market is for Ja Morant. Like, the market for Desmond Bane is considerably bigger than the one for Ja Morant.
Sure.
Like, Desmond Bane fetched 4 first-round draft picks and some ancillary pieces. Ja Morant, can you get 1 pick and some salary filler back for a $40 million guy? I mean, he doesn't defend. He can't stay healthy. He's got the off-the-court issues that have plagued him. Like, what do the Grizzlies do here? Like, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place because it's not working for Ja Morant, and I don't think they can trade him for anything more than nickels on the dollar.
I mean, I have maintained they can't trade Ja Morant, and I still feel that way right now.
Even now.
For a bunch of reasons, right? Trade value is one of them, and a big one.
It's a big one. Yeah.
Right? That is a big reason. If you can't get much back for him, it becomes not that worth it to trade him away. I think the fan base is attached to him in a way that people around the country and other markets don't quite absorb. It is a very identity thing. And we saw in Dallas with Luka, and I'm not saying the situations are comparable necessarily, but we know what happens when a franchise a fan base and a player feel very connected, and how devastating it can be to trade that player away, even if maybe in this case it's time. I don't think a coaching change is going to help. I think that either he has to ask for a trade, then it's not your fault with the fans, or he needs to realize this is it. And eventually you start losing shoe contracts. You start losing endorsements. You start losing, it's his career. He's twiddling his thumbs away. And at some point, if you can't get anything significant back for him, it's not worth trading him. And at some point, you hope that he can have some sort of moment where he realizes the person he's hurting most by pouting like this is himself. I don't know. And the waiting for Ja Morant maturity button to kick in, I don't know where we are in that. But, to me, that's currently still the best course of action.
I just don't know what the pathway to healing between Ja Morant and Isalo is.
But do you really think that's the problem?
I think it's among the problems. I think Ja Morant is not happy with the way Isalo is coaching the team, even though Isalo has kind of re-embraced the whole, here's the ball, and you go make some plays offensive philosophy.
I think the important part of that sentence is the first half and not the second half.
Which part?
Ja Morant is not happy is more important than the with such and such. Yeah. Because there is all kinds of things we have seen, again, not a small sample size, with Ja Morant that have not made him happy. And as you pointed out, that's been including 3 other coaches. So I just don't think that's I think that's a symptom. I don't think it's the malady. I think you have to kind of try to go to the source, and somebody needs to have a conversation with him again, because we know there have been all kinds of conversations with Ja Morant about you have to stop doing this, you have to start doing that. Yeah, but at some point you hope it kicks in. You just have to look at what your other options are. Yeah. Your other option is try to trade him, not get much back for him, and alienate your fan base that is already, not thrilled with your team, and also dwindling.
Also dwindling. Also not doing big numbers there at the FedEx Forum.
Correct.
Also a team that's in a bit of a rut with that arena, and
there's talk of would that be a good team to play in Seattle?
You got a Silicon Valley owner,
right?
Look,
again, it's not a good situation. But that doesn't mean that there is a better situation out there by trading him.
This is how I kind of began, though. Like, it is a rock and a hard place, because you got to really be a Grizzlies truther. You got to be a Chris Vernon type Grizzlies truther.
Shout out Chris Vernon.
To believe, like, I've heard Chris Vernon on multiple shows, his own other podcast, talk about how when Ja Morant is healthy and Jaren Jackson is playing with him, they win games.
Yep.
Like, and that's true. Like, the statistics, they do bear that out. This, though, feels different. This feels like Ja Morant is giving up. That's what it feels like. Yeah. It feels like he's like, I'm just done with this, in the same way that Jimmy Butler was done with Miami. It just feels eerily similar, the two types of situations from the player's perspective. Now,
I would disagree with that, by the way.
You do? Okay, why?
Yeah, because Jimmy gets clearly unhappy with
Jimmy wanted money
situations.
in that
Right,
situation.
exactly. And by the way, that was the problem in Chicago.
Yeah.
Like that is often the problem.
Often the problem.
So,
Yeah.
you know, and by the way, his career has borne out that he does deserve to be paid well. And I would argue he has been. But look, he is unhappy with situations. There's definitely a Jimmy wears out his welcome and with franchises at some point so far. But there isn't we have a problem with Jimmy's motor, or if he's put in a new situation, we're worried that he won't play.
Well, they had a problem. But the reason I think it's similar is because up until this year or the end of last year, there was no problem with Ja Morant's motor. Like, even when he was saying, I'm not going to dunk, and then going out there and doing like reverse windmills on Victor Wembanyama, like he still was going out there doing it. At the end in Miami, Jimmy's motor wasn't there. Like, Jimmy was kind of standing in the corner and just doing his thing.
He was striking.
pouting.
He was
Like,
on strike until,
striking.
he
But,
actually
is
went
Ja
on
Morant-
strike.
Ja Morant's kind of on strike too. And those aren't my words. Those were what Draymond Green, connected to Steph Curry, the conversation they had.
Right.
Where it looked like Ja Morant was on strike. That's why I think they're similar. Like, is Ja Morant on a form of Jimmy Butler-esque strike at this point?
But Jimmy Butler had trade value.
I mean, not incredible. He had a couple of teams. I'm glad you bring that up, because I want to shift to like who might be interested, because Jimmy's trade value was limited, right? Like, he was an older player. They wanted a contract. Phoenix was surefire going to give it to him because they didn't care at the time about spending money. Memphis was willing to do it at that time because they needed a player like Jimmy Butler. And Golden State, even though they weren't willing to do it initially, they came to an agreement, a meeting of the minds where Jimmy didn't get exactly what he wanted. Golden State gave a little more than they wanted. They kind of met in the middle on that extension. I think it's a similar, look, Ja Morant, you don't have to extend him. He's got 2.5 years left in this contract.
Okay,
and it's
so
a big number, but it's not that big. It's
So
like
you just
$40
named
million.
3 teams with the Butler thing.
Yes.
What are 3 teams with Ja
I'm
Morant?
glad you asked, Rachel Nichols, because I've got them for you right here. I am going to look to the north, not to the Toronto Raptors, although that could be interesting too. I didn't really think about that. The Minnesota Timberwolves.
I
Because
knew
the Minnesota Timberwolves always have their name in the mix for a star.
I was like, can I say it at the same time as him? Yes, I think I can.
It's always Minnesota. It's always Tim Conley. Tim Conley is a swing for the fences type of GM. And Tim Conley right now has a point guard problem. Mike Conley is too old. Rob Dillingham isn't very good. And Dante DiVincenzo is good, but he's kind of a combo guard. So you need a point guard to compete with the best and the best. We saw that last year with the team and what they were at the end of that season. Didn't advance. Well, they got to the conference finals, but they would have lost to Golden State if Steph didn't get hurt. This year, I think they're going to have even bigger problems with no point guard, Conley a year older, Dillingham
I agree.
not stepping up. Ja Morant, maybe you bring Ja Morant to Minnesota. Maybe he doesn't really want to go to Minnesota, but whatever. But you bring him up there and you play him with Anthony Edwards. Maybe Anthony Edwards re-inspires Ja Morant. Maybe having an athletic superstar wing alongside him gets Ja Morant going. Do you want to weigh in on that before I give you my second team?
There's strict gun laws in Minneapolis. I just want to point that out.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Just saying. Look, it depends on what you can get for him, right? The discussion we just finished was under the assumption of you're not going to get much for him.
Yeah, filler in a first,
right?
basically, yes. I mean, like Jaden McDaniels would have to be in there. That's something, kind of. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, if somebody is willing to make you a decent offer and you feel Ja at this point is more cancerous than not, I still think you need to sort of, at least the PR battle, you've got to make it seem, you got to really put out that he's on strike, even if he's not actually asking for a trade.
I mean, I feel like Memphis fans that numb to it, like he's not playing the same way. Like, they watched him turn into a top 10 MVP candidate. And he's not that guy anymore.
I
He's
think
not like
it's
he's
a
old.
concern. I'm just telling you, I think it's a factor. It's the factor that's got to be addressed. It doesn't mean it's the only factor. It's just something that's got to be addressed. Look, if Minnesota is willing to go to bat and be like, great, we're going to give up something at least halfway decent
Rob
for
Dillingham,
Ja Morant.
McDaniels, who's a big contract there. I mean, something like that. I think it's doable. And
You know,
and obviously a pick would have to be through.
Right? I mean, they have a coach in Memphis they do believe in, and we've seen what...
Minnesota, right? Creative guy, yeah.
No. I mean, in Memphis.
Oh, in Memphis.
Meaning that if they just get players back who maybe haven't been excelling in, say, Minnesota, that they believe in their coach in Memphis.
Yes.
We just talked about the Toronto Raptors, and I think the way that coach is playing his players, he's getting the most out of them, and they believe they have that kind of coach too. Sure, if the offer is good and if they can figure out a way to mitigate the PR. What is your other team? Well, who are your other teams?
Well, the other team is right in the same region, and that is the Chicago Bulls. Because the Chicago Bulls, even though they're playing great basketball right now, they're kind of superstarless, right? They've got a bunch of guys that are pretty good.
Sure.
And maybe
Is
one
this
or two.
after or before they trade for Anthony Davis?
They're not, maybe making a multi-team trade. I don't know. But I look at the Bulls, and could the Bulls be interested in pairing Ja Morant with a Josh Giddey in the backcourt? Giddey's like a 6'8" guard. You could play him alongside a Ja Morant. Giddey would take a lot of the playmaking responsibilities off him if he had to. I just look at Chicago. Could Chicago be a team that takes a big swing on a star? I think they're less likely than Minnesota because they've got Kobe White back. They were pretty good. And Giddey, like I thought this at the time, but like not to make this a Bulls conversation, but like I thought Giddey, that contract for the Bulls was phenomenal.
No,
phenomenal.
It's amazing.
Giddey like was going to outplay that contract year one.
Yeah.
And when that gets to year 3, it's going to be a great deal. That Caruso deal was like the ultimate everybody wins deal with them. I just wonder if the Bulls, in need of a superstar, and if it's at the right price, a bargain basement price, would they take a swing on a Ja Morant still under contract for a couple of years?
Okay, so this is a serious question.
Yeah.
Would you take Ja Morant over Anthony Davis, or would you take Anthony Davis over Ja Morant if you are the Chicago Bulls and you want to at least target someone for a trade? Anthony Davis from Chicago.
I know.
Anthony Davis, injury
I
prone.
know which way you'd go. Well, I would probably take Anthony Davis.
Okay.
Because I think AD's got probably 3 more really good years if he can stay healthy. Always the caveat. And like, I don't think Chicago's desperate for a backcourt player. I think Giddey is in the All-Star mix this year. I think White is a good player. They've got a bunch of other guys there in that mix that are pretty good. I think they could probably use more defensive help in that front court. Yeah. Like so Vucevic, if maybe he gets reps or he gets traded.
That takes Chicago out of the Ja Morant conversation for me. Yeah. Because if they are going to make a move, if they are going to spend assets, look, we all know that Dallas is going to trade Anthony Davis. I mean, that was part of what was behind the change in the front office, was they had someone in the front office who absolutely would not trade Anthony Davis under any circumstances to try to prove himself right. And that
I hear a lot of people think that he's not. I've seen a lot of like, Dallas is going to play this season out. Like, all right, well, we'll see about that. We'll see how that goes.
I mean, look, when they trade him, to me, is not as important because they're clearly not playing well anyway. So they're going to get a good pick. And it's just really a matter of, are you as an organization focused and making decisions around building around Cooper Flag? The Lakers clearly made a turn as the minute they got Luka. We are now making decisions around Luka as opposed to LeBron James. And it has impacted who they've tried to acquire. It has impacted LeBron not getting the contract extension he wanted, et cetera. The Dallas Mavericks clearly are pivoting to, and should be pivoting to, we need to make decisions around Cooper Flag. And whether that's getting rid of Anthony Davis now or in February or in the summer, kind of depends on when they can get a good offer. But if you are the Chicago Bulls, to take this back to that conversation, and know that Anthony Davis is going to be available, is that a trade that you try to make over a Ja Morant trade?
Probably for all the reasons I kind of said there. I think the front court is needed. And if I were the Bulls, I'd be aggressive on AD now because I would see the opening. Right?
Absolutely.
Like you had AD.
And by the way, it's good
court.
for the Mavericks to have him off their books now, because then you really can tank. Whatever we call it, but for a high draft pick to put next to Cooper.
So Toronto was on my list too for a Ja Morant team. If they were going to take a big swing, again, price being right, they've got quickly in that backcourt.
If I were them, that feels
they weren't high on my list. Like Minnesota was number 1 on my list of targets.
You really have to be a team where you think the locker room can absorb Ja Morant instead of Ja Morant absorbing the locker room.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure the Raptors are that team. Also, it's cold and depressing for a lot of the winter in Toronto. And
all of the winter in Toronto.
We saw with Damian Lillard, like if you are not conditioned for that or expecting that, it can affect your play. I know these are dumb things to bring into a basketball conversation, but it turns out they're true. And I just don't think that Ja, if the whole point is we need Ja to be in a better mood than he is now because the mood he's in for Memphis isn't working, I'm not sure Toronto is the place for that. And that's with all respect to the great city of Toronto. But I don't. So you're really talking about the Timberwolves. And then it becomes...
Well, there's the final one on my list.
Oh, who? Okay, go.
Sacramento, because nothing matters in Sacramento.
Wait.
Sacramento, why not? Let's just go.
That is the ultimate deck chairs on the Titanic for both teams.
Let's drop Ja Morant into the most irrelevant situation in the NBA.
They would probably do that, actually.
Why not?
Why not?
They would.
He's a star.
Of course they would. They need a star. Of course they'd roll the dice on that. Now, I don't think they have anything to offer, if you're trading Ja Morant and you're Memphis, you know you're going in a different direction.
What's the Sacramento pick situation? All I'm concerned about if I'm Memphis is great. Let's pivot. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about the Pelicans.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
Memphis, they're going to need to reboot the whole thing. I don't know if that means Jaren Jackson Jr. would go. That probably not. They re-signed him. He's under contract. But look, if I'm Sacramento, screw it. If you can get Memphis interested in any of the flotsam they have on their roster and whatever draft capital they've got left, nothing matters in Sacramento. I've watched a few of their games. It is depressing. It is hard
awful
to watch some of those games because you and I were watching, like they were, 3 years ago now? They were so much fun in that middle of that Mike Brown era where they were lighting the beam and they had young stars. And at one point they had De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah.
Then they had Fox, DeMontis Sabonis, and they looked like a team on the rise. And now they're a bunch of 30-year-olds. And Doug Christie looks like just a deer in the headlights every single night.
I apologize. I can't give this person credit because I don't remember who tweeted it, but someone tweeted, do they just turn on the beam occasionally to make sure it still works?
I mean, why not? You're getting so Sacramento's my other team just because nothing matters in Sacramento.
Right. I think you got to see what you're offered if you're offered. Sure, I think you quietly make some phone calls, but I also think you have to have at least one more conversation with Ja of, hey, you are throwing your career away at this point. And that is the thing with athletes that is the reason why ownership always wins in labor negotiations, aside from we have billions of dollars and you don't, is that time doesn't matter to teams and ownerships in the same way it matters to players. Players have a limited number of years that their body is able to do things at the high level they want them to. And if you are a player, Ja Morant is not as young as Ja Morant used to be, you have to start thinking about, is this it for me? Am I going to turn into the guy where this is the obituary they write for me when I retire from the league? And maybe someone can still have that conversation with him. And if it still doesn't work, maybe that's your PR out too, to say, look, we have tried everything. We have tried.
Like, even if they didn't have this final conversation that you're asking for, they've had enough. They've had enough conversations with Ja Morant over the years about maturity, about the ability to be coached in a certain way, to fit into a system. They've had God knows how many conversations out there about him. I think they're all talked out. I think that we've reached the point of no return with Ja Morant and Memphis.
Have Chris Vernon go talk to him.
Chris Vernon, 60% of the games. I've seen many clips of him saying that over the last couple of weeks. Love you, Vernon. And love you, ball boys out there. All of you. I respect you. I'm there for you. Whenever you need me,
Oh boy.
I got your back.
Oh boy.